The Carolina Panthers finished the 2022 season with a 7-10 record and fired former head coach and current Nebraska Cornhuskers head coach Matt Rhule halfway through the year. He was just 11-27 during his time in the NFL, and the Panthers were 1-27 when allowing 17 or more points. Rhule was fired after the Week 5 loss to the 49ers, in which Carolina lost with a score of 37-15. The Panthers eventually stumbled to a 2-7 start through 9 games, but finished the year on a 5-3 note. And they ended the year on a high of a note as they could have, considering how the first 9 weeks of their season went. And when you break down some of their losses from 2022, they are a lot closer to competing than you think. And the future is surprisingly bright. And we're going to break everything down in today's video, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by discussing some of the positives from the Panthers' 2022 season. When a team starts out as bad as they did, it's pretty easy to write the Panthers off and to think their season is done. But down the stretch of the season, there were 2 big wins in particular that I think highlight why the Panthers' future is bright. They went into Seattle in Week 14 and ran the ball down their throats. They put up 30 points with Sam Darnold throwing for 120 yards as their quarterback and ran for over 200 yards in the process. This was discussed as one of the low points in a video about the Seahawks last week, but this was without a doubt one of the high points for the Panthers' 2022 season. They had 2 players in Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard each rush for over 70 yards and ran for over 220 yards as a team. Yes, Seattle's run defense was terrible in 2022, and I acknowledge that. But I think this was the type of win for Carolina, at least for players that will be around for a while, that, hey, we have something going on here. For players like Ikem Ekwonu and DJ Moore, it was somewhat of a realization of, holy shit, the offense can cook. And this was highlighted in an even bigger way 2 weeks later on Christmas Eve against the Detroit Lions, when they won with a score of 37-23. Within that game, they had 2 125-plus yard rushers and ran for over 300 yards on the day. And no, that's not an exaggeration. The Panthers ran the ball 43 times for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns against Detroit, and aside from obliterating them time after time after time, this was against a team that takes pride in being the gritty, tough guys no one wants to get down and dirty with. Meaning Dan Campbell takes pride in the physicality of the trenches and wants his guy to be the more physical team, or his guys. And for Carolina to take their will away with what was equivalent to a playoff game for Detroit, who entered the game with a 7-7 record and had won 6 of their last 7 and was by every definition clicking on all cylinders, this was a harsh reality check for the Lions. This was a clash of 2 teams who started out the year with a very bad record, and fortunately for Detroit, Dan Campbell turned the team around. But on this day, the Panthers were the more physically imposing team, and it showed. And I think what's most impressive about the Panthers' 5-3 run to end the year, and why I think their future is as bright as it is, they did this with a combination of PJ Walker, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold at quarterback. PJ started the Falcons game in Week 10 to improve them to 3-7. Baker started the game in Baltimore, which they dropped to 3-8, and Sam Darnold started the rest of the way. This team had every reason to check out and essentially show up and give 85 to 90% every week, collect a check, and say, see you next week since our season is already over. But they didn't. And sure, there were some ugly games during the 2022 season, and there were some ugly games down the stretch, and I acknowledge that. But that's what they're going to take care of this offseason, or attempt to, which is improve the roster. I mean, I credit the Panthers for winning the Week 18 game against the Saints, and if you did not watch that game, I don't blame you, as it was a 6-10 team versus a 7-9 team with 0 playoff aspirations on the line. And in that game, Sam Darnold completed just 5 of 15 passes for 43 yards and also threw 2 interceptions. He had a passer rating of 2.8, and it was a very ugly game. Despite all of this, the Panthers still came out on top. Now, to be clear, saying the Panthers' future is bright does not translate to Super Bowl champions next year, and that Frank Reich is going to lead them to a 20-0 record, because that's not what I'm saying. But something else that will benefit Carolina in a big way is the retirement of Bucs quarterback Tom Brady. These teams split in 2022 as Carolina held them to just 3 points in their Week 7 meeting and lost 30-24 on New Year's Day. And for as much as we've discussed the Panthers running the ball down teams' throats like they did in the Seahawks and Lions game, there were other games where opposing teams essentially said, "We are going to force Sam Darnold to beat us." And for the Bucs, it worked. Carolina ran the ball 22 times for 74 yards, which equated to just 3.4 yards per carry. And also within this game, Sam Darnold threw for over 340 yards. So the Bucs' game plan of forcing Sam Darnold to beat them worked in a sense of putting the ball in his hands and making him win the game, but Darnold had a good game. DJ Moore had over 115 yards receiving in what was one of just 3 100-yard games for him in all of 2022. Now, on the other side of the football, Tom Brady threw for over 430 yards, and Mike Evans had 10 catches for 207 yards and 3 touchdowns. And more specifically, this was the game. If you played against Mike Evans in a fantasy championship, you more than likely lost because of this game. What's important to remember is J.C. Horn did not play, and it's not as simple as saying, well, if J.C. plays, then the Panthers win, because Mike Evans won't go off, and very rarely are corners matched one-on-one with an exact receiver for every single snap. Would it have had an impact? Yes, of course, and that's the point of this, is if J.C. Horn plays, I don't think Tom dots up the Panthers secondary for over 430 yards, and I don't think they put up 30 points. CJ Henderson in this game was targeted 11 times and gave up 9 receptions for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also allowed a perfect passer rating of 158.3 when being targeted. And if that's not enough, Keith Taylor, a 2021 fifth-round pick for Carolina, who has been exactly what you would expect from a young, late-round pick, also did not have a good day in coverage as he allowed 4 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. So in a game where Carolina could not run the football as they were again held to 3.4 yards per carry, and in a game where Sam Darnold played well, and hell, you could argue he deserved the win, they had not one but 2 corners in coverage allow a perfect passer rating when being targeted. I can't imagine that's happened in many games, and it's not a surprise the Bucs won. And when you hear Panthers fans talk about J.C. Horn and the impact he makes when on the field, this is what Panthers fans mean. And how all of this comes full circle is, I truly believe if JC plays this game, they win, which would put them at 8-9 on the year with a combination of, like we said, PJ Walker, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold at quarterback all year long. The one big thing that concerns me regarding the Panthers' future is the 2023 NFL Draft. More specifically, they are picking 9th overall, and everyone knows they need a quarterback. This is not the same as other teams falling in love with prospects and having it leaked, which is something else entirely. The Panthers simply cannot roll into 2023 with any of the quarterbacks they did in 2022, and I know there will be a crowd that is thinking about Matt Corral in the back of their head. Corral was a 3rd-round pick in 2022 for Carolina and suffered a Liz Frank injury during the preseason and missed his entire rookie year. Would Corral working out be nice for Carolina? Yes, obviously. But there's no way they head into 2023 with solely Corral and say, okay, Matt, go win us 12 games. Having said this, I do believe they are a prime trading candidate, whether it be up to 3 with Arizona or 5 with Seattle. Chicago would not trade down to 9 as they want to ensure they get either Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, and trading back to 9 would only ensure they do not get one of those guys. Houston at 2 obviously would not trade down as they need to ensure they are getting either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, which leaves Arizona as a true wild card at 3. Carolina could jump up right in front of Indy at 4 and get the remaining quarterback available. The Panthers will also have some competition as Las Vegas at pick 7 is in desperate need of a quarterback too. There's been a lot of rumors about Aaron Rodgers going to the Raiders, and Davante Adams has been especially vocal about this on social media. And while that would be nice to pair those two back together, for now it's just speculation. Of course, Davante is going to say he wants Rodgers back. Now, Matt Corral also plays into this draft day scenario, as the Panthers did not have a 2022 third-round pick due to the CJ Henderson trade when they acquired him from the Jags. They traded a 2023 third-rounder to get the 2022 third-rounder in order to draft Corral. However, Carolina acquired a ton of picks when they traded Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers. So with this coming full circle, the Panthers, one way or another, are going to have to trade up to presumably third overall with the Cardinals, and in their best case scenario, number 5 overall to the Seahawks. And speaking from a compensation standpoint, it would start with pick number 9, pick 39, which is their second round pick 60, which is the 49ers second round pick, and at minimum, a 2024 first rounder too. The only pick I'm not 100% certain on in this scenario is pick 60, but it would start with 9, 39, and a 1 next year, maybe even a 1 after that. Who knows? And if the Panthers say no chance in hell, Arizona can basically dangle this in front of them and say, well, someone else is trading up and they're offering 3 firsts, or whatever story they want to use. And how all of this plays into the Panthers' future being surprisingly bright, the rookie quarterback they would draft, which we can reasonably assume would be either CJ Stroud or Will Levis, as I think Bryce Young will be gone by then, will be walking into a team that finished 7-10 in 2022 with a good receiver in DJ Moore, a good young left tackle in Ike Ekwonu, who I think has multiple Pro Bowls in his future and may get an entire video on his rookie season during May or June, and a solid run game, which of course is a quarterback's best friend. I don't think it's unreasonable for the Panthers to have both a new starting quarterback and starting running back next year, both of which I think will be improvements over the starters from 2022. Someone like Zach Charbonnet, one of my favorite prospects in the 2023 NFL Draft, could be a good pick in the 3rd or 4th round, which of course would be dependent on if they have this selection or not. But the Panthers' defense is also very fun to project in terms of what could be there. They will cut Shaq Thompson, as doing so would save $13 million, and they will restructure several players like DJ Moore and Taylor Moton, and they will be, cap space-wise, have a decent amount to work with for next year. They recently hired Ejiro Evero from the Broncos to be their defensive coordinator, and obviously the Broncos season in 2022 was underwhelming from an offensive standpoint, but their defense was utterly insane. And this is nothing short of encouraging for Panthers fans after seeing what Evero did to help out Pat Surtain. The Panthers' defense was about average in 2022, but games like the Bucs one, where Brady threw for 430 yards, and games like the Bengals one, in which they ran for 240 yards and 5 touchdowns against them, will severely skew statistics. The biggest thing with the Panthers' 2023 offense is they have to play better complementary football and be able to sustain drives long enough for the defense to catch their breath before going back out there. There were glimpses of this in 2022, but it needs to happen more often in 23. And that's one big thing Frank Reich will harp on. I also think the Panthers will sign someone like Irv Smith in the offseason, who has had a disappointing start to his career in Minnesota. On top of all of this, the NFC South is not a great division, which will only benefit Carolina. With an improved defense, an improved offense, and a better roster, I don't think it's unreasonable for the Panthers to win the NFC South as early as next year. Let me know what you think regarding the Panthers' future in the comments below, as that's all I have for today, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it helps a ton, and until next time, be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.